8 years, 375 appearances, 128 goals, 100 assists, 2 Champions Leagues, 3 La Ligas. Vinicius Junior has given Real Madrid everything. And Real Madrid just told him, accept our terms or get out. His contract has 11 months left on it. The gap between what he wants and what they're offering is €10 million a year. Arsenal are waiting in the wings with a deal worth over £400,000 a week. And his new manager, Jose Mourinho, once blamed him for provoking his own racial abuse. Saudi Arabia already waved €1 billion at him. Arsenal are knocking with 150 million. And Real Madrid? Real Madrid won't budge. This could be the biggest transfer in the history of football. If you care about the beautiful game, stay until the end. And tell me, should Vini stay or should he go? Drop your answer in the comments, share this with someone who needs to see it, and if you haven't already, subscribe so you never miss what's coming next. Let's get into it. The boy from Flamengo. To understand why this story cuts so deep, you need to know how far Vinicius Junior has come. In 2018, Real Madrid spent €45 million on an 18-year-old kid from Flamengo who had played exactly 2 first-team matches. 2. The deal was signed 48 hours after his professional debut. It was the highest fee ever paid for a player under the age of 18 at that time, and the entire football world asked the same question. Have Real Madrid lost their minds? The answer came slowly. Those early seasons were rough. Vinicius was criticised relentlessly for his finishing. He'd dribble past 3 defenders and then blaze the ball into the 5th row. Pundits questioned the investment. Fans debated whether he'd ever be more than raw potential. He didn't break. He evolved. The 2021-22 season changed everything. Vinicius scored the winning goal in the Champions League final against Liverpool in Paris. The strike that delivered Real Madrid's 14th European crown. In a single moment, he went from exciting prospect to genuine superstar. As of today, across 375 appearances, Vinicius has 128 goals and 100 assists. 3 La Liga titles, 2 Champions Leagues, 2 UEFA Super Cups, 2 FIFA Club World Cups, the FIFA Silver Ball. He's the 2nd highest scoring Brazilian in Champions League history with 32 goals, behind only Neymar. And then came the 2026 World Cup. Playing under Carlo Ancelotti with Brazil, Vinicius was sensational. 5 goals in the group stage, scoring in all 3 matches. He became only the 5th Brazilian in history to achieve that feat, joining Jairzinho in 1970, Romario in 1994, Ronaldo and Rivaldo in 2002. Here's the detail that makes that stat extraordinary. In all 4 previous instances, Brazil went on to win the tournament. This is a player at the absolute peak of his powers. And this is the player Real Madrid might lose. 20 incidents, 0 justice. But Vinicius Junior's 8 years in Spain haven't only been about glory. They've also been defined by something far uglier. 20 documented incidents of racial abuse. October 2021. Barcelona fans hurled racial slurs at him as he was substituted during El Clasico. The case was closed because police couldn't identify the individuals responsible. March 2022. Mallorca supporters made monkey noises and screamed, "Go pick bananas." Authorities called it disgusting, but concluded there were insufficient grounds for criminal proceedings. Then, on El Chiringuito, Pedro Bravo, president of the Spanish Players Agents Association, told Vinicius to stop playing the monkey. He later apologised, calling it a metaphor. No one was sanctioned. January 2023. An effigy wearing a Vinicius shirt was hung from a bridge near the Wanda Metropolitano. 4 members of the Frente Atletico Ultras group were sentenced to 14 to 22 months in prison, later reduced to fines. May 2023. The match at Mestalla became a turning point. Vinicius confronted the stands after sustained racial abuse, then was sent off. A year later, 3 supporters were sentenced to 8 months in prison, the first conviction of its kind in Spanish history. And then came February 2026, the most recent incident, and the most painful. At the Estadio da Luz, during a Champions League playoff between Benfica and Real Madrid, Vinicius scored a stunning goal. Then Benfica's Gianluca Prestiani was accused of directing racist language at him. The match was stopped for 10 minutes under UEFA's anti-discrimination protocol. Mbappé confirmed he heard the racist language 5 times. Now here's the detail that matters most for this story. Benfica's manager that night was Jose Mourinho, the man who is now in charge at Real Madrid. And what did Mourinho say after the match? He said, "These talents can do beautiful things." But unfortunately, he didn't just happily celebrate that wonderful goal. When you score a goal like that, you should celebrate with respect. He then argued that Benfica couldn't be racist because their greatest ever player, Eusebio, was black. The Athletic called it a new low for Mourinho. The Guardian used the word gaslighting, blaming the victim. And now that man is Vinicius Junior's head coach. Imagine showing up to training every single day, answering to someone who told you to celebrate more respectfully while you were being racially abused. That's the reality Vini is living in right now. 18 months of deadlock. The contract saga started in January 2025. Real Madrid's CEO Jose Angel Sanchez and head of scouting Juni Calafat sat down with Vinicius, his 2 representatives, and his father at the Valdebebas training complex. Real Madrid put a number on the table, approximately €20 million per year after tax. It sounds like an enormous amount of money. Vinicius turned it down. His camp responded with their own figure, close to 30 million per year, including base salary, performance bonuses, and, critically, a signing-on fee with no precedent in Real Madrid's history. Real Madrid said no. They countered. Vinicius' side rejected the counter. And from that point on, both parties entered a loop. Offer, rejection, counter-offer, rejection. In April 2025, Real Madrid leaked information through their friendly outlets in the Spanish press, suggesting a deal was close. Vinicius' camp publicly denied it. That was the first visible crack. The moment it became clear, this wasn't just a negotiation. It was a standoff. Then came the summer of 2025, and everything escalated. Al Ahly, backed by the full weight of Saudi Arabia, dropped a 5-year package reportedly worth up to €1 billion, all in. Real Madrid immediately slapped a €1 billion release clause on his contract. Vinicius said no to Saudi Arabia. But the damage was done. Because now, Vinicius knew exactly what the market thought he was worth. And that made Real Madrid's €20 million a year offer look like something else entirely. Not just low, disrespectful. 18 months have passed. His current contract expires in June 2027, 11 months from now. And there is still no signature. The shadow of Mbappé. To understand why €20 million a year, a salary 99% of footballers on earth would dream of, isn't enough for Vinicius, you have to look at Real Madrid's wage structure. Kylian Mbappé joined on a free transfer from PSG in the summer of 2024. His salary? €31.25 million per year, roughly €600,000 a week. Add in the signing-on bonus spread across 5 years, and his total earnings dwarf everyone else in the squad, including Bellingham, estimated at 12 to 15 million per year, and Bernardo Silva, who just arrived from Manchester City. Vinicius currently earns approximately 17 to 18 million euros after tax. Real Madrid are offering to raise that to 20. He wants 30 to close the gap with Mbappé. But here's the thing. This isn't really about money. It's about respect. Vinicius was winning Champions League finals while Mbappé was still at Paris Saint-Germain. He has delivered trophies, decisive moments, iconic goals for this club. And now he's being told he's worth 10 million a year less than a player who hasn't won a single major honour in a Real Madrid shirt. On the pitch, it gets more complicated. Vinicius and Mbappé both gravitate toward the left flank. Both want the ball at their feet. Both want to be the focal point of every attack. The overlap has visibly diminished Vinicius's effectiveness over the past 2 seasons. His body language has told its own story. Frustration, isolation, a player increasingly drifting toward individual play rather than collective movement. Publicly, they've said all the right things. Vinicius called Mbappé a legend in an interview in May 2026. But what happens on the pitch tells a completely different story. And Real Madrid, rather than resolving the tension, chose the wallet. Mbappé keeps the highest salary. Vinicius is told to accept it or leave. The ultimatum. On July 31st, 2026, Marca, the newspaper closest to Real Madrid in all of Spain, dropped the bombshell. Real Madrid had ended all negotiations and issued a final offer. Take it or leave it. The number hadn't changed, 20 million euros after tax per year, no signing-on bonus. No additional clauses, no further rounds of talks. Sports Illustrated framed it well. The craziest part is that neither Vinicius nor Real Madrid actually want to part ways. The latest update from Spain reads like a power move from the club to apply public pressure on the player. This is poker, and someone has to show their hand first. This is classic Real Madrid. Under Florentino Perez, the club has handled these situations the same way every single time. A final offer goes on the table. No concessions. The player decides. Sergio Ramos, the legendary captain, 671 appearances, 4 Champions Leagues, walked away in 2021 over a contract dispute. Cristiano Ronaldo, 450 goals, 4 Ballon d'Ors in white, left in 2018. Mesut Ozil, the most creative playmaker on the planet at the time, gone in 2013. Angel Di Maria, man of the match in the 2014 Champions League final, sold the same summer. They all left, and Real Madrid carried on winning. That's the message, and it has never changed. No one is bigger than this club. Vinicius knows this history inside out. The question is whether he's about to become the next name on that list. Back at Valdebebas, August 3rd, 2026. Vinicius officially returns to the Valdebebas training complex after 4 weeks of post-World Cup leave. He arrives at 8:30 in the morning, completes his medical alongside new signings Bernardo Silva and Brahim Diaz. According to Managing Madrid, he's in outstanding physical condition and appears composed. The first session under Mourinho is light. Fitness work, strength drills, basic ball exercises. Mourinho and Vinicius shake hands. They exchange a few words. In front of the cameras, there's no visible tension. But behind closed doors, it's a different story entirely. This week, Vinicius's representatives are scheduled to meet directly with Florentino Perez. This is the meeting. Sign a new deal or open the door to a transfer. According to ESPN, Mourinho values Vinicius and maintained contact throughout the summer break. But the Portuguese coach also understands that this decision sits above him. A source close to the situation indicated that Mourinho does not view Vinicius as unsellable. If the club decides to cash in for north of €150 million and reshape the squad, Mourinho will accept it. And there's one more signal worth paying attention to. Real Madrid currently have 14 first-team players in training. The World Cup stars, Mbappé, Bellingham, Tchouaméni, Cucurella, Konate, haven't returned yet. But while Vinicius' contract remains unsigned, Real Madrid are actively pursuing Yan Diamonde, a 19-year-old left winger from RB Leipzig. If a club is buying a new left-sided forward, while their current one hasn't committed his future, that tells you everything you need to know. Arsenal isn't a plan B. While Real Madrid issued their ultimatum, Arsenal had been laying the groundwork for months. According to The Athletic, Arsenal's approach has been systematic and deliberate. Mikel Arteta personally called Vinicius and walked him through the tactical plan in detail. Vinicius would play on the left side of a 4-3-3, alongside Bukayo Saka on the right, Martin Odegaard at 10, Declan Rice in the midfield pivot, and William Saliba anchoring the defence. Arteta's pitch was direct. The entire project would be built around him. A source close to Arteta told The Athletic, "Arteta loves him. If he doesn't renew, we will be there." The Kroenke family has approved the finances. Arsenal's transfer budget this summer reportedly stretches to £250 million. They've spent around €80 million so far, according to Transfermarkt, and they're closing in on Bruno Guimaraes from Newcastle for €90 million. But they've kept their powder dry for target number one. The transfer fee. Real Madrid want €170 million. Arsenal want to pay under 150, a €20 million gap. Entirely bridgeable, especially for a player with just 11 months left on his deal. The wages? Arsenal are prepared to shatter their salary structure. The offer exceeds £400,000 per week, approximately €24 million per year after tax, plus a signing-on bonus and image rights. It would be the highest salary in Premier League history, surpassing Saka, Haaland and De Bruyne before them. And here's how you know Arsenal are deadly serious. They walked away from the bidding for Morgan Rogers, who Chelsea ended up signing for £117 million. They didn't pursue Bradley Barcola, with Liverpool currently in talks with PSG, two of the best left-sided forwards on the market, and Arsenal passed on both, because the entire strategy is built around one player. Arsenal won the Premier League last season. They reached the Champions League final, losing to PSG on penalties, 3-4 after a 1-1 draw, with Gabriel Magalhaes missing the decisive kick. This is not a club in a building phase. This is a genuine contender for the biggest trophy in European football, and Vinicius could be the final piece. Why Arsenal actually makes sense. At Real Madrid, Vinicius has reached the summit, but he's also stuck in Mbappe's shadow, stuck in a wage structure that refuses to recognise his value, stuck in a role where he's one of many stars rather than the star. At Arsenal, everything is different. The left wing is wide open. Martinelli doesn't have the quality to start for a club competing at the very top of European football. Arteta has built a machine around Saka, Odegaard, Rice and Saliba. But there's a gaping hole on the left flank. A hole shaped exactly like Vinicius Junior. And here's the most compelling argument of all. If Vinicius brings the Champions League to the Emirates, a trophy Arsenal have never won in their entire history, he doesn't become another legend. He becomes the legend. Not one name among many on a wall of greatness, the way it would be at the Bernabeu. The name. The man who changed the history of the club. Think about Martin Odegaard. He was Real Madrid's failed wonder kid. Never trusted, loaned out repeatedly, treated like an afterthought. Then he moved to Arsenal and became their captain, their heartbeat, their identity. Sometimes leaving isn't a step down. Sometimes it's the biggest leap of your career. The risks are real. None of this comes without danger. The Premier League is a fundamentally different animal. The physical intensity is relentless. The fixture schedule is punishing. The English weather is a world away from Madrid. Vinicius has never played club football outside of Spain. Adaptation is never guaranteed. Then there's the dressing room. Sports Illustrated raised a legitimate question. Can a superstar earning double what everyone else makes integrate into Arsenal's squad? A group defined by its unity and egalitarianism. When Christos Solis, Arsenal's new signing from Club Bruges, was asked about Vinicius, his response was telling. "I'm pretty confident I'll prove myself in the coming matches." That's the mentality of a squad where no one gets special treatment. Vinicius would have to buy into that culture completely. And then there's the financial reality. 150 million in transfer fees, 24 million a year in wages, agent commissions, bonuses, image rights. Over a 5-year deal, the total cost could exceed 300 million euros. That's a staggering commitment, even for a club backed by the Kroenke Empire. So what happens next? Here's what I think. This is a transfer in genuine deadlock, and that's exactly why it's going to dominate every headline for the next several weeks. Neither side wants a divorce, but neither side is willing to blink. Real Madrid refuse to break their wage structure for anyone. Vinicius refuses to accept being valued below Mbappé. This is a battle of egos, and if there's one thing Real Madrid's history teaches us, it's that ego is the reason stars leave. The Athletic revealed a critical detail. There are key figures inside Real Madrid who want to sell Vinicius this summer. Cash in for over 150 million euros now, rather than watch him walk for free in 2027. The final call belongs to Florentino Perez, who has always been Vinicius's strongest advocate, and Juni Calafat. But even Perez can't ignore the arithmetic. Losing 140 to 170 million euros in transfer value is a blow no club president can justify. Arsenal are in the strongest possible position. They don't need to force anything. They just need to wait. As The Athletic reported, Arsenal were operating on the impression that Vinicius would be open to joining. While the situation remains fluid, sources close to Arsenal say they remain optimistic. Vinicius has 3 options. 1. Renew with Real Madrid at 20 million a year. 2. Run down his contract and leave for free in June 2027. 3. Join Arsenal this summer. Option 2 is the worst outcome for Real Madrid, but it's also risky for Vinicius. Spending an entire season playing for a club that everyone knows you're leaving is psychologically brutal. Option 1 requires Vinicius to swallow his pride. Option 3 requires Real Madrid to accept the loss of their star. Personally, I put the probability of Vinicius leaving Real Madrid this summer at around 55%. The meeting this week is the 90th minute, and we're all waiting to see who scores the winner. Vinicius Junior. From an 18-year-old kid who left Flamengo for 45 million euros to a superstar with 375 appearances and 128 goals for the biggest club on earth. 8 years of brilliance, 20 incidents of racial abuse, 5 World Cup goals. And now, all of it could end. Over a 10 million euro gap and 2 egos that refuse to bend. Arsenal are waiting. Real Madrid have drawn their line. Mourinho won't fight to keep him. Mbappé won't take a pay cut. And Vinicius is standing at the most important crossroads of his career. This week decides everything. And whether Vini stays or goes, one thing is certain. This will be the transfer story of the summer. So what do you think? Should he stay at Madrid? Should he wait it out? Or should he take the leap to Arsenal? Let me know in the comments. And if this story matters to you, like the video, share it and subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.